Welcome to another live episode of the Wisco Fanatics Show, where we discuss the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, Badgers football, and basketball from an optimistic perspective. Wisco Fanatics is brought to you by Cardboard Legacy, Wisconsin's most complete sports card shop. Buy, sell, grade, and consign all at their location in Oshkosh.
Alrighty, welcome back to the Wisco Fanatics Show. Now, there's a lot of stuff to get into today, especially as it pertains to the Milwaukee Bucks. So we are actually going to start on the Bucks today. Instead of starting on the Badgers like we normally do, Mike is still going to join us in a little bit to talk about the Badgers. But we are going to start with the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the biggest piece of information here is the Milwaukee Bucks trading Khris Middleton and A.J. Johnson and a first-round pick swap to the Washington Wizards for Kyle Kuzma, Patrick Baldwin Jr., and a second-round pick in this year's upcoming draft. Now, we can dive into just the surface things. Now, the first, off the bat, Kyle Kuzma is younger by 3 years, taller by 2 inches, cheaper now by about $11 million. And his salary next year goes from $23 million to $21. And in the 26-27 season, his salary goes from $21 down to $19. So his salary actually decreases for the next 2 seasons after this season. So that is going to first get the Bucks under the second apron. Now we've had a lot of these conversations today about what that means for the Bucks. It means that they are now allowed to do 2-for-1 trades. So they can do a Pat and a Bobby for a $20 million-ish player. They could do, a Pat and DeLon Wright for about a $12 million-ish player. They can do things like that. They can do multiple players for one-player trades now that they are under that second apron. It also gives them a little bit more flexibility in availability of their future picks, which is if they finish under that second apron for multiple years in a row, they then get access to more first-round picks that they can trade in the future. So even just that part of it, the financial aspect of it, and the flexibility that this deal makes is a factor in this trade. And then we can get into my couple other things. One, Giannis gave a vote of confidence for Kyle Kuzma. That's a big deal. There's nothing in this deal that is making me concerned that Giannis is going to be gone in the offseason or want to be traded. It's absolutely heartbreaking to lose Khris Middleton. There's no version of this that was going to end with us being happy about it. But Giannis being on board, it does calm the nerves a little.
Yep.
Next, my big thing is we avoided 2 players. We avoided C.J. McCollum, who I wanted no part of. He doesn't do anything better than Khris does, and he's smaller, and he's worse on defense.
Yep.
And he makes the same amount of money.
Yep.
And we avoided Bradley Beal, who makes almost $20 million more than Khris Middleton, is smaller, shoots a little bit better at the three-point line, very small bit better at the three-point line, but the Bucks avoided C.J. McCollum and Bradley Beal. That's a win in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, I gave you this kind of what-if question, and I understand we're going to be playing some what-ifs when we talk about Kyle Kuzma in a second here.
Yep.
But what if Khris Middleton would have retired at the end of this season?
Yeah, that was a really good question.
Khris Middleton would have retired at the end of next season?
Yeah.
It's not something that has really been, given as a possibility or an indication that it's something that he might do. But, I mean, there's no denying his injury history, which he's been healthy for the last 2 playoff runs. But that's obviously you still need to get to the playoffs. And, as long as the Bucks are out of the play-in, I'm not super worried about it. But, I mean, you want to have guys healthy for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kyle Kuzma being able to play more minutes than Khris Middleton has is a benefit. Now, the other really big thing about this, obviously besides the flexibility in trade, is it's going to free some money up this summer.
Yes.
So even if between today and tomorrow at this time, we don't have any other big moves from the Bucks, like we're going to talk in just a second, some other players the Bucks could target. If the Bucks don't make another big move before tomorrow, it isn't going to be like, oh my God, John Horst needs to be fired for not doing enough to make this team a championship contender this year, because Dame and Giannis aren't going anywhere. Kuzma's not going anywhere. Brook Lopez is a free agent, but it's going to give the Bucks flexibility this summer to maybe not hedge this year and next year as like we'll be 50-50 in on each, but for the Bucks to go a little bit heavier into trying to go in all in next year.
I mean, when you just brought something up that people aren't taking into consideration as well, talking about Brook Lopez, right? Mm-hmm. You were talking about Khris Middleton. Maybe he retires. Maybe Brook Lopez retires. That's another $24 million that's going to be on the books for the Bucks to play with. Obviously, they'll have to replace Brook's production, but getting $24 million plus the money they saved, an extra $11 million on top of that with trading Khris Middleton, that allows you to go after a guy who Tyler has been talking about.
Let's finish talking about Kuzma, and then we're gonna come back to that guy.
I know. I'm just putting that in there for people.
We're gonna come back to that guy because I'm really excited to talk about that guy.
Yes.
So let's talk about Kyle Kuzma. So you give me your thoughts on the trade, and then we'll talk about Kyle Kuzma specifically.
Okay, so obviously people were freaking out, right? We found out about this trade. It was kind of broken to us, while we're in the middle of our workday, and everybody's just kind of like, what the heck, right? And then you get the knee-jerk reactions. And, something that me and you have really worked on is trying to take a step back and look at the different perspective instead of being like, man, that sucks. One of the main players from a championship team in Milwaukee, which is really special in Milwaukee, a championship team in Milwaukee, first one in 50 years. We don't win that title without him. He's gone. So instantly your brain goes to all the nostalgia of, oh, my God, remember when Khris Middleton did this? And that's fine. That's usually stuff that you do when somebody retires, not when you trade them. But for me, when I took a step back and I looked at it, there was a few things. This move had to happen. And I know that people don't want to hear that, but it had to happen. The injuries were really starting to catch up. There's people talking about, he had consecutive good games in a row. Well, I don't want to be that guy. Very easily for him to have a setback with his injury, and then he doesn't play for another 3 games after that. And I really am walking a fine line here. I don't want to be disrespectful because Khris Middleton was awesome to the Bucks. I want to say that. He was awesome. I enjoyed watching him. Giannis and Khris together, they were tremendous. It was a lot of fun, a lot of good memories there. But this is something that had to happen on the basketball business side of things. And, when you get a guy like Kuzma, the last time he played meaningful basketball was on the Lakers before he got traded to the Washington Wizards. And that's what I really went back to look at because he's now back in a situation like that, right? So now he's got to tick that back up. The competitiveness is back there. And the last time that he played meaningful basketball, he shot 36% from the three-point line. That's very good for a guy at his size, 6'9". He's going to be a floor stretcher. And then he had a really good defensive rating. He was a 107, I believe, defensive rating. You could definitely live with that. What was that?
109. I have it pulled up here. 109.
Oh, it was 109 back in. Okay. Either way,
not far off.
Not far off, and that's a pretty good defensive rating. Yeah. When you consider, again, I'm not trying to be a dick. When you consider what we see from Bobby Portis, just calling a spade a spade.
So to give the context, the defensive rating is the amount of points that you would give up per 100 possessions.
Yeah.
So if 5 Kyle Kuzmas were on the court, they would give up 109 points per 109 possessions. That's not bad.
No, that's not in today's world. That's not bad at all.
No, that's in today's world, like 120 is like an average.
Yeah, right. So then you also factor in that he can help with rebounding, being his size, and that's something that the Bucks have struggled with recently.
That's a great point.
People were complaining about the Bucks not having size, like, oh, the Bucks don't have size, and not taking into account, which I have some things to say about Bobby Portis' situation, by the way. Yeah. We didn't have Bobby Portis, who is one of our better rebounders, one of our more physical players.
We'll talk about that in the games because there's some out-of-pocket stuff being said.
Yeah. People were not taking into consideration missing Bobby and then talking about how we were small and we needed more big men. Well, the trade today, we gained a lot of size. I'll tell you that right now. If you were worried about us being small before, you don't have to worry anymore. A 6'9" and a 6'10" player on the way. Yeah. So it was a good trade for the Bucks. I actually liked it when I took a step back. I didn't like losing Khris Middleton, who is one of the probably 4 best players in Bucks history. Maybe he's up there.
He's top 5, 100% for sure.
Yeah, he may be in the Mount Rushmore. I don't know.
Very, very, very possibly.
Yeah, so that's just my little 2 cents on Kuzma. I think it was a good trade for the Bucks overall.
Yeah. You bring up a good point with size. Patrick Baldwin Jr. is 6'9". You said maybe 6'10", but
yeah.
Both guys are 6'9". Khris was 6'7".
Yeah.
So, that's the size thing is absolutely 100% a factor. Kuzma does actually have championship experience. He was with the Lakers when they won their championship in the bubble. Yes, it's a bubble, but still. You brought up his 3-point percentage that year in the 2020-2021 season. He shot 36%. That's right at the NBA average. Again, a 6'9" guy that can shoot, average from the 3-point line. His career percentage is 33%, which is slightly below average. But the thing to take into account is he's been playing in Washington for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
And before this year, he did not have Jordan Poole with him.
Yeah.
So, you're looking at Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Poole. Where else are shots being created?
Yeah.
That team is obviously a bad team for a reason. They need a lot of work. Right before the show, they traded Jonas Valanciunas to the Kings. So that is another thing that they're doing to create some potential future picks for themselves. Big Al said, in my opinion, I feel like we should have had more for Middleton. Maybe we should have gotten rid of Middleton for Dame instead of Holiday. Looking back at it now, I don't agree. Just because Drew and Dame are both point guards. Drew wasn't going to be playing shooting guard, in my opinion, and at that time, the Drew Holiday playoff numbers were too bad.
Yeah.
Like there's no way of dancing around it. The 2 years that we played without Khris Middleton in the playoffs and Drew was needed to be the number 2, he was not that guy.
Yeah. That was when we really missed Khris, and I think this last ankle surgery really kind of put the nail in the coffin with what we were going to do with Khris. It was time. The money and the production, it just didn't add up, man. And that's the business side of it, and it sucks.
Yeah.
As fans, it's hard for us to understand that sometimes, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And I had been choosing to look at the per 36-minute Middleton numbers just because I felt like that's what he was going to be like in the playoffs, which is why I focus on those so heavily, because that's what the Bucks are doing. They're aiming for the playoffs. But looking at Kyle Kuzma's numbers, you look at Khris Middleton's numbers. Khris Middleton's numbers looked better from percentages wise, whereas Kuzma's numbers look better as per game wise. So this season, Kuzma's averaging 15 points. Last season, he averaged 22. The season before, 21. So he's capable of being a 20-point scoring guy. He's only averaging 27.7 minutes this year as compared to 32.5 and 35 in the last 2 years. So if Kuzma's a guy who is able to give the Bucks, 28 to 35 minutes a game, that's a benefit. Now, one other thing that we haven't talked about here, and one big aspect of losing Khris Middleton, is obviously the chemistry.
Yeah.
Have we not talked about the building chemistry between Dame and Giannis this year?
100%.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
In my mind, the Bucks are betting on that.
They really are.
And we've seen it. So it's not like there's no foundation or like we need to hope that Giannis and Dame can have better chemistry. Like the chemistry got better, which allowed them to make a move like this.
Yeah.
So I understand the chemistry aspect. We've said it tons of times on this show ever since we started it, that Giannis and Khris share a brain. Yeah. We're starting to see those things happening between Dame and Giannis in year 2.
Yep.
Which over the last summer, people were like, oh my God, Dame and Giannis aren't spending every weekend second together. How are they going to build any chemistry? By playing basketball together.
Yep.
So, as Wisconsin sports fans, we've seen Brett Favre traded. We've seen Aaron Rodgers traded. We've seen Drew Holiday traded. We've seen Devontae Adams traded. We've seen Corbin Burns traded. We've seen guys that were franchise cornerstones traded. There's no version of this that doesn't suck to lose Middleton, but hopefully we have laid out, enough of what the potential benefits are. And the biggest one in my mind is still that financial flexibility. So with that, like we said, the Bucks are now under the second apron, which means they can do 2-for-1 trades. So looking at a list here, I'm not sure who you all have on your list, but I guarantee you I have more names on my list. So I'll let you go first on some other guys that the Bucks could target between today and the 2:00 tomorrow trade deadline time, which we may go live after, briefly just to discuss anything else that the Bucks do. But who are some other names that you are considering for the Bucks to do here?
Well, I didn't write down a ton of guys. I wrote down guys that I thought like made sense like this year to kind of go after. I wrote down Cam Johnson, John Collins, Andrew Wiggins, Marcus Smart, Bruce Brown, Lonzo Ball, Dylan Brooks, and DeAndre Hunter. Those are the names that I wrote down as guys that make sense to fill Chris's role. You have to fill a little bit of playmaking, which we've talked about a bunch of times. People didn't respect Middleton's playmaking enough.
Nope.
He did every once in a while get sloppy with dribbling the ball. It is what it is. You deal with it because he also hits a bunch of three-pointers. Okay.
And he can have 8 assists in a game.
Yes. But, thinking about a Cam Johnson, that guy can light it up, right? Thinking about a John Collins, a guy who can, rebound with anybody. He could jump. He's an athletic big, something they've been looking for, right? We've talked about that for weeks. Andrew Wiggins, Bucks have been linked to him the last 2 years.
And the Warriors are reportedly interested in Bobby Portis. So there's a little bit of mutual there.
Yeah. There's a guy like Marcus Smart, another guy the Bucks have been linked to for the last 2 years. A POA defender, point of attack for people who don't follow the acronyms in NBA. A point of attack defender that the Bucks have been missing since losing Drew Holiday. Bruce Brown, he's kind of an everything kind of guy. He could play defense. He just fills a role.
He's like a great value Marcus Smart.
Yeah, great value Marcus Smart. Good, better way to put it. Lonzo Ball. Now he's kind of damaged goods, but when he's healthy, he's really good. The Ball brothers that made the NBA are actually
Lonzo
good.
Doesn't get enough credit. Like we've talked about this in the couple of years that he's been with Chicago. Lonzo's a good defender.
Yes.
And out of all of them, like all of the Ball brothers, he's probably got his head screwed on the most straight.
Yeah.
His 3-point shot is disturbingly ugly, but he makes a decent amount of them.
Yeah.
So like it is what it is. Like it's ugly, but it works.
It's the playmaking for me with Lonzo Ball. Being able to draw up plays as Dame is quote unquote the shooting guard, and having Lonzo make the pass is something that I really like. I really like the potential of a Lonzo Ball.
I really like that idea actually.
Yeah, and pick and roll with Giannis. He's a really good passer. And he can attack the rim. So like I said, when he's healthy, and we dealt with that with Middleton. But so what would be different with Lonzo Ball? If Lonzo Ball's knees hold up, he would be a tremendous get. Dylan Brooks, for obvious reasons, POA defender. We've been talking about that a lot. And DeAndre Hunter is probably my favorite name on the list. You're talking about Atlanta, a team who's done a really nice job at filling out the wing area of their team. And they got a lot of young studs over there. And DeAndre Hunter has kind of become disposable, in my opinion, now. Tyler brought up a good point with the injury to Jalen Johnson. That's going to be tough for them to just be like, oh, okay, I guess we'll just lose 2 small forwards in one season. Right. But, thinking into the future, DeAndre Hunter, you want to get younger. You want to get more athletic. You need a guy who can score and get those tough buckets in the playoffs as the third wheel. I think that he could fill that role. In some capacity, he may not ever get up to the height of Khris Middleton. I'm not saying these guys will do that. But being able to do it sporadically from time to time when asked if they could do that, I'd be okay.
And DeAndre Hunter, he's a very similar play style to a guy like Taurean Prince.
Yeah.
A guy that we've going into the season and at times this season have described as could be like one of the free agent steals of this season. If the Hawks are looking at the absence of Jalen Johnson and being like, hey, we could use a power forward that can get us some points, Bobby Portis could be of interest to the Hawks.
Yeah.
I previously discussed maybe Larry Nance Jr. as a swap for Bobby Portis. So like these things can happen. We're not saying that any of these things are going to happen. Yep. Big Al said losing Middleton is tough for the fan base. He was originally part of the Brandon Jennings trade. Looking back at it, it was a good trade that kickstarted the Bucks rebuild. It absolutely did. It paired Giannis and Middleton together for over a decade. Through the hardest of hard times and through the best of times.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so tough to lose a guy like him. Taylor said it would suck to lose Bobby. I feel we need to keep him.
If they get a wing, I would agree with that, because I would like at least a 4-man rotation with the big men.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
Yeah.
But as of right now, getting a Kyle Kuzma makes him a little bit expendable, in my opinion.
Exactly. That's the thing, is that Kyle Kuzma is not only going to give, power forward flexibility, it's going to make things a little bit easier for Giannis too, depending on who the Bucks are playing.
Yep.
Because he's bigger than Khris, so that does give the Bucks a little bit more positional versatility.
Yep.
Still not on board with Giannis playing center, which is why you're going to hear in these names that I'm going to bring up a lot of big men. But my dad said, please no Marcus Smart, can't stand his face. He was annoying as a Celtic, but he's not a Celtic anymore. We could do the thing that the Celtics did and grab the discarded defender from our former rival and be like, hey, you want to come with us and win a championship that your former team can be like, shit, we should have maybe held on to that guy.
Would his face look good under one of these?
Yes, it would.
I think I'd be okay with it.
Yeah. And yes, Taylor, it would suck to lose Bobby. He's obviously, become ingrained into the atmosphere of games. If we're talking again the business side of it, and just the product of the Bucks playing their best basketball, I think there are guys that can help the Bucks more where they need it, and that's defensively. And Big Al asked, do you think the Bucks should trade away Brook Lopez? In my mind, they should consider it. And I'm not saying that they should look to shop Brook Lopez, but the guy that Jake and I, who, if the Bucks were able to make a deal work, either like today or tomorrow, or in June when free agency starts, a guy that we would be thrilled to have on the Bucks is Miles Turner. I've brought him up for 2-3 years now,
at least.
And the Bucks talked to the Pacers about him last year. They had conversations about Miles Turner for Brook Lopez last year. And this year, the Pacers have said they are not willing to give Miles Turner a $30 million per year deal. I think the Bucks could.
Oh, they will.
I'd be willing to give him $30 million a year.
Oh yeah, dude. If you get rid of Khris and you get rid of Brook and you bring in a Miles Turner, you open that window back up more.
Yeah. That, like, Miles Turner, he, in my mind, would be the only guy besides Anthony Davis that would be perfect to play with Giannis.
Yeah.
Because he can defend, he's athletic, and he can shoot threes.
Yep.
It was Anthony Davis, Miles Turner, and Brook Lopez. Now, the Pacers, they would obviously want Brook Lopez for the rest of this season for them to, go on their stretch run. And the Bucks would have to give some picks consideration to it. But in my mind, if the Bucks were to do something like that, it would have to come with the caveat that the Bucks were able to talk to Miles Turner about an extension before trading for him.
Yeah.
Going rental for rental isn't something I really want to do. I still would. But I would expect that if the Bucks were going to do that they would offer the Pacers a little bit less of draft consideration.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with that. Riley said he hadn't thought of Miles Turner much. He would be such an upgrade on the defensive end. He would be a good upgrade defensively. Brook Lopez is still, in my mind, a little underrated defensively, mostly by Bucks fans. But Miles Turner's athleticism would be a factor.
Big
Al said any players that are unrealistic in trade talks for the Bucks that he would want. For me, it's KD. I did actually mention that to Jake. I'm like, there's no version of this that doesn't end with us being sad to lose Middleton unless we fuck around and get Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
But, so yes, that would be the one. I mean, other than that, like, there's a way that if the Bucks trade Bobby, Brook, Pat, Marjan, and Chris Livingston, that they could get Jimmy Butler.
No.
It would be a wild scenario, and obviously you're giving 5 guys to get 1. But that is an unrealistic one that you could put in there. But if we're going by the realistic names that I have in mind, one would be maybe Herb Jones. I don't know if the Pelicans really want to move him. He's a guy in my mind that has the potential to be a future defensive player of the year.
Yep.
That would be a big deal for the Bucks defensively. You mentioned Marcus Smart. Talked about Miles Turner. The last summer, the Bucks were talking to the Pistons about Jalen Duren.
Yeah, I would love that.
I would absolutely revisit that. That dude's a walking double-double.
Yep.
Another guy that the Bucks have had conversations with is the New York Knicks, potentially for Jericho Sims, the backup center for the Knicks. It could just be something as simple as Jericho Sims from Arjan Beauchamp. Simple.
Fucking send it.
This is one of those moves that I could see, like I said a little bit earlier, that the Bucks don't go heavy all in this year, but go, kind of all in and then heavy all in next year. That Jericho Sims would be something like that.
Mm-hmm.
One guy that I had previously mentioned was Brandon Clark. A guy that we talked about last summer was Steven Adams. These are some of the guys that could be brought up as potentials. Another rumor that I've read today is possibly Pat Connaughton for Cody Martin.
Yeah, I read that too.
I'd be okay with that. Is there any way to get KD? It would be basically the same way that we'd have to get Jimmy Butler. It would be like trading 5 guys for 1. So
I heard that Durant doesn't want to leave Phoenix.
Yeah.
He's kind of firmly putting his foot down that he wants to relax in Phoenix. That's where old people retire anyway, so.
So, yeah, it's technically possible, but I would say unrealistic.
Yeah.
2 other guys that I would 3 other guys. One that I brought up previously, Robert Williams III. Just do Bobby for him straight up. Easy.
Yep.
That works. That gets the Bucks better defensively, and it gives them a backup big man. That would be very doable. Bojan Bogdanovic from the Nets. They give the Bucks another big shooter, just another big guy on the team. That would be, you could do Bobby and Pat for Bojan Bogdanovic. And one last one that I've read is being dangled as a potential trade piece that the Bucks could trade Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton for. I think you're going to be kind of like, ooh, when I say this one. Jakob Poeltl.
Okay. Size.
Underrated.
Okay. Actually, I don't hate that when I think about it. I mean, as a fan, I got to be honest. I feel the same way as everybody else about Khris Middleton. Like, I love Pat Connaughton. I love Bobby Portis.
Yep.
But in the grand scheme of doing the right thing for the team, on paper, that makes sense.
And I know he's younger. I'm going to look up exactly how much younger. Jakob Poeltl is 29. So he would be on the same timetable as Kuzma.
Yeah.
Which is the timetable that, the Bucks are with Dame is in the next 5 years.
Yep.
So, again, we're talking about guys that have been here, guys that were here for the championship that it would hurt to lose. But, if we're talking, are we going to try to get another ring or are we going to try to keep around the guys that we like?
We have these discussions with the Packers.
It's an uncomfortable conversation, but it's one that I guarantee you John Horst is having all day today.
He's been having it for the last 3 months and not sleeping and living off coffee, bro.
All right. Anything else you want to say on the Bucks trade or potential trades that they could make in the next day?
No.
Okay. No. We're going to run through these games that the Bucks played in the last week. They played at the Spurs, they played home against the Grizzlies, and they played at the Thunder. Going to the Spurs game, the Bucks didn't shoot well on the three-point line. We've said it all throughout the season. That correlates to losses strongly.
Yep.
It was good to see Pat make a couple. Damian Lillard was 3 for 7. That's not bad. Gary Trent Jr. kind of in a slump, was 0 for 3, and Ryan Rollins was 0 for 4. AJ Green returned. He was 0 for 2. It is what it is. Three-point shooting is going to be kind of how the Bucks live and die this season. We've seen it. The Boston Celtics are the exact same way.
Yeah.
They've been blown out by good teams and bad teams when they shoot poorly from the three-point line.
Yep.
They've also beaten people by like 50 when they shoot well.
Yeah.
It correlates. Only at 10 turnovers. That's not bad. 12 points allowed off those turnovers. That's That's good, but it is still efficient on San Antonio's part to turn those 10 turnovers into 12 points. I'm going to just leave the Khris Middleton part out. There's really no point in trying to sell the fan base on him anymore, so I'm just going to leave that out. Same with A.J. Johnson when we get to the Thunder game. Now, three big things. One, A.J. Green's going to be a little rusty. People are telling on themselves with their own inconsistency by not whining about A.J. Green scoring 0 points when they whined about Khris Middleton scoring 0 points. That tells me that it's not about the points. It's about trying to scapegoat somebody and making all of the team's shortcomings fall on one person.
Could apply that same energy to Bobby Portis when he comes back from a death in the family, which people were very disrespectful online about, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't appreciate that either. If they say personal reasons, it doesn't mean that a guy's getting traded, nor does it mean that a guy is soft for not playing for personal reasons.
Yeah.
Bobby Portis' grandmother died. That's why he was out for personal reasons.
Yeah, so if you had anything to say about him, respectfully, F off. That's how I feel. We are the type of people, we wait for all the information to come out before we, come out and say what we got to say. We did the same thing when Romeo Dobbs, not all the information came out, but all the information that was available to us came out. When he had his personal reasons why he missed games this last season. It is what it is, man. If he was having a mental health day, he's having a mental health day. That's just something that has to happen in this world today.
Yeah.
And Bobby Portis missing the last 6 games because of, his grandmother passing. That's a big deal. That's trauma that people have to deal with. He literally quoted in the quote, he said that was like his mother. That's a big loss. So you give him as much time as you need. And by the way, after I said that, that's exactly what Doc said after one of these games. And I was getting backlash by 10, 15, 20 people. Oh, it doesn't say family reasons. It doesn't say family reasons. Yes, it does. Literally watch a game once in your entire life and then watch the post-game interviews. I promise you're going to find out a lot more about the Bucks than just looking at some box scores and highlight reels on YouTube. Thank you. That's my TED Talk.
Next thing, Chris Paul giving major little brother energy.
Oh, my God.
You won a regular season game. Cool. We can tell you're still salty about having the Valley-oop done on you and losing a ring.
Yeah.
Still salty. It's been 3 years. You're still salty about that?
Yeah.
Still salty about getting dunked on when he tried to shove Giannis out of bounds while he was in the air and he dunked on you? Still salty about it, huh? Still salty about it, huh? 3 years you've been holding on to that. But hey, you're front running today because you won a regular season game.
Good job, buddy.
Congrats. Happy for you, Chris.
Yeah, I agree.
The last thing with this game, Big Al said when Bucks fans say AJ Green, I think of Bengals AJ Green at first when he became a household name. I love Bengals AJ Green too. I kind of hoped when he went to the Cardinals that he was going to end up being a Packer, but that was right when we very, very first started this show, actually.
Yep.
2020. And Steve, you're going to love this. So let's say the people just predicted 50 wins for the Bucks, right? That means 32 losses. Ring this point card. Valid. That means 32 losses. Are people seriously, and I'm not saying this to anybody that's in our comment section, this is going to go more so for people you're going to see in other comment sections and just groups in general. Does that mean that you are going to complain 32 times that, quote, this loss shouldn't have happened? And that doesn't even include wins that people complain about.
Yeah.
So you're talking potentially 40-ish times that people are going to complain. You realize that that's almost half of the entire season. You are spending 50% of your time complaining. Do you wonder why you have a negative outlook when you spend 50% of your time complaining? And for some people, that's generous. Do you realize, like, over the course of the season, how much complaining that is? People have to learn to take losses in stride. And this week of Bucks games is a perfect example. The Bucks were 0-3 this week. Obviously, one of the games was kind of just like a toss it to the wind.
Yep.
But give me your thoughts on the Spurs game, and we'll talk Grizzlies and Thunder.
Yeah. So since we're leaving the Khris Middleton section out, I'll leave that out as well. I thought the bench played okay. For all things considered, they scored 35 points, 18 rebounds, 5 assists. No Bobby Portis on the bench, so that's pretty good. They shot 42% from the field, 31 from 3, so solid. Something that I started to take note of after the Bucks played 3 games in 4 days on their little West Coast road trip. Going to the Spurs, you could tell that Dame's legs, Taurean Prince, Brooks' back maybe. Remember, people forget he just had back surgery 2 years ago,
Yep.
A little over 2 years ago.
Having to play more minutes with Bobby out.
Yep. Damian Lillard, his legs looked very tired. You could tell in the efficiency. On the drive, the Bucks scored 24 points. 8 of them came from Dame, and he only shot 33%. Catch and shoots, we had good efficiency all around the board. I had no complaints there. The percentages were nice. The scoring was nice. And it was divvied up very well. There was multiple players that contributed to the catch and shoot numbers. You get to the pull-up game, we scored 23 points from the pull-up. This is where a guy like Khris was really good in this game. But Damian Lillard, his legs just weren't there. He scored 3 points on pull-ups, and he shot 16%. So that's tough to swallow when you shoot 33% on drives and 16% on pull-up game, which is a majority of your points and how you kind of operate. You're going to have a tough day at the office. Something else I noted that wasn't as bad as people were saying. People were saying that the Spurs were just killing the Bucks in every area. We lost the points in the paint by 6 points. It's not that bad. Where they did kill us is the three-point shooting, as Tyler noted before. They doubled us up on three-point shots. So you're going to lose a game when a team hits 12 more threes than you. It is what it is, dude. That's the NBA today. Other than that, I mean, I thought the starters were pretty good. Didn't have as great efficiency from Brook Lopez as I would have wanted. I mean, 3 for 8, 0 for 3 from 3. When you play a guy like Wemby, you need your center to be able to hit threes to get him away from the basket. He blocked Giannis twice in the first couple minutes of this game, and Giannis kind of got his get back, and he was like, oh, okay, I can't just go off for a layup because this guy has arms that stretch from freaking sideline to sideline. Yeah, I got to go up and power this
thing. Top of the backboard without jumping.
Right. So Giannis got his get back, and he had a really good game, 35, 14 and 6, 13 to 23 from the field. So good on Giannis. Dame's efficiency wasn't the greatest, but it is what it is, man. It's one loss.
Yeah. Steve brought up a really great point as we're transitioning here from unfortunately loss to loss. And in the wins, no praise. Spoiled fans expecting greatness at all times. And that's why I'm saying what I'm saying here, Steve. And I know that you appreciate the way that we talk about this, which is why we appreciate you as one of our more devoted fans of our show. Is there has to be some form of understanding here. That's why I bring up if you're predicting 50 wins, you're also talking about 32 losses. You can't do, I expect every game to be won, because that means you are expecting 82-0. And I'm not saying you should go into a game with the expectation that the Bucks are going to lose this game, 40% of the time, but to just be able to accept that the Bucks or the Brewers or the Packers or the Badgers are not going to win every single game they play. And something that we have talked about, the other team has a say in it. That's how competition works. It's not just the Bucks or whatever insert team here gets to execute their will regardless of what the other team does. The other team has a say in it. That's what makes it competition. That's why we watch the games, to see who comes out on top. The other team has a say in how the game goes.
Well, I think essentially what you're trying to say as we wrap this little conversation up is the difference between – thanks for breaking the big news. Heart you, Jake. Hey, what's up, Justin? What you're trying to say is the difference between confidence and arrogance, really, if you think about it, right? You can be confident your team's going to win, but if you go into every game thinking that they should win, that's arrogant, because you're not taking into effect, the other factors, like the other team has good players too. I mean, the Grizzlies, we're going to talk about the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies were without their best player, but they still have other good players.
Yep.
Jaren Jackson Jr. has turned into a very nice player.
He's a beast. I love Jaren Jackson Jr.
Former defensive player of the year.
Big fan.
He can guard anybody. He's now a 2-time All-Star. He has continued to grow his game. He's expanded it out to the three-point line. He had a very good game against the Bucks from the three-point line. He plays tough. He plays the right way. You never hear anything bad about him. Even in the midst of all the stuff that happened with John Morant over the last few years, Jaren Jackson Jr. has been a staple there, been a very good leader for them. So Jaren Jackson Jr. is a stud. He might have to be put on the short list of people that we didn't respect enough that could guard Giannis one-on-one, in my opinion. But going into this game, obviously, as we always say, good game from Giannis. 2 for 3 from the three-point line is interesting. We haven't been able to say that too much this year. He hasn't shot many threes.
First
Damian Lillard, again, the efficiency wasn't there. I just wrote down his legs are cooked right now. He's getting no lift on a shot. It's hard to watch. Glad they gave him the day off. Honestly, I honestly, to God, I wouldn't be upset if he had the day off either. I wouldn't be that upset.
But I said to you when we were talking before the show is just give him one day off out of every 8 or 9 games.
Yeah. Brook Lopez looked tired too. He looked slow. Everybody under the sun was talking about, trading him, getting rid of him. Yes, I agree with Tyler. They should explore it, but it doesn't have to happen.
Yep.
You still need size. You still need defense.
Yep.
Talking about getting rid of Brook Lopez, and people are like, oh, my God, our defense is so bad. You get rid of Brook Lopez, your defense gets worse. And by the way, this game against the Grizzlies was the 4th straight game that the Bucks gave up 125-plus points.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been good lately. Scoring on the drive, Giannis struggled. He scored 2 points out of the 10 that the team scored. He shot 25%. Scoring on catch and shoots, the Bucks had 45 points. Brook Lopez had 9 of them. He shot 33% on catch and shoot opportunities. Pull-up game, Bucks scored 28. Damian Lillard scored 4 on 20% shooting. So you're talking about your guy who's best at driving, shooting 25%. Your best stretch big, shooting 33% on catch and shoot opportunities. And your point guard, who is has a dominant pull-up game, shooting 20% on pull-ups. That's a recipe for disaster, honestly.
Yeah.
And to tie a nice little bow on it, after I talk about the paint scoring, where we scored 18 and Brooks scored 4 on 40% shooting, look at the rebounding and points in the paint if you want to see where this game got away from you.
Yeah.
The rebounding, the Bucks had 36 rebounds, 8 offensive, 28 defensive. The Memphis Grizzlies had 61 rebounds, 22 offensive, and 39 defensive rebounds. They had more defensive rebounds than we had total rebounds for one. So I just tallied them against each other. Defensive rebounds, they beat us by 11. Offensive rebounds, they beat us by 14, which led to 22 second chance points, by the way. Yep. And they had 61 total rebounds. That's 25 more rebounds than the Bucks had. You're not even taking into account the turnovers we had at that point. They're just getting 25 rebounds more than the Bucks.
Yep.
Points in the paint, the Bucks scored 36. They scored 66. You lost the rebounds by 25, and you got outscored in the paint by 30. That's where this game got lost.
I agree, because you look at it, the Bucks actually outscored the Grizzlies by 18 points on the three-point line. Yep. Bucks made 6 more threes. This is one of the rare games where the three-point shooting did not correlate to the final result, because the Bucks were 20 of 45. That's 44%. If they shot that every game, that'd be fantastic.
Yep.
The 13 turnovers, 18 points off turnovers allowed. The Grizzlies had 3 more points off turnovers than the Bucks. They only had 2 more second chance points than the Bucks, and only 3 more free throws than the Bucks.
Yep.
So I agree with you that the points in the paint was the big thing here. The Bucks just kind of ran out of gas in the fourth quarter, similarly to the Clippers game, where the extra possessions were a big factor. Is that? Other than that, this was the game where Damian Lillard's streak of 20-plus point games was snapped. He had 13 straight games of 20-plus points before this game, and people are right back to calling him lame time and calling him washed. Still had 9 assists and only 3 turnovers.
Yep.
So, obviously still playing the game the right way, even though his shots aren't going in. So, he struggled, but this is his first bad shooting and scoring game. The game before you brought up his efficiency wasn't the greatest, but he was still over 20 points. Is his first bad shooting and scoring game in a month. people just have to stop overreacting to a bad game, because if you look at his numbers this year compared to his career, kind of eye-opening.
Yeah.
He's averaging 25 points, 25.0, 4.6 rebounds, 7.3 assists, 1.2 steals, and 2.8 turnovers. His career numbers, 25.1 points, 4.3 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 1.0 steals, and 2.8 turnovers. So he is averaging 0.1 point less than his career, more rebounds, more assists, more steals, and the same amount of turnovers. Also, shooting 44.6% from the field, 38% from the three-point line, and 92.2% on the free throw line. His career numbers, 43.8, 37.1, 89.9. He is shooting better across the board from his career this season. Now, I'm not saying we are getting the best version of Dame, but we are getting an above-average version of Dame.
This is how I'm going to put it. When it's time to go, Dame's going to go, okay? He's at that point where everybody gets in NBA 2K in your My Career where you're like, I'm not playing no more regular season games. F this shit. I want to play in the playoffs. That's what it's about for Dame. He's done shit in the regular season. He's shot all the threes. He's made all the big-time shots. He has one thing left on the resume that's empty. That's all it's about. That is literally all it's about. All this other shit that happens in December, January, February, it's all cute and stuff. The only thing that mattered was Giannis and Dame being on the same page. And that is exactly what we are getting.
Yep.
So miss me with all this bullshit about blah, 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 we need this, blah, 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 they suck, blah, 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 they can't do this. When it's time to put up or shut up, and it's time to lock in, I trust having the duo of Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm going to tell you right now, I trust that duo.
Yep.
That is a top 3 duo, no matter where you rank them.
Yeah.
So
like I would rather have them. This is going to sound a little crazy, but I would rather have that duo than Luka and LeBron. Today. Bar none. Luka and LeBron don't play any defense. Nobody in that duo plays defense. Same with Beal or KD.
I mean, bro, you could have put Booker in there, and I would have still agreed with you because neither of them play defense. Because KD's old.
Is what I'm saying.
I agree.
Like Steph and Draymond,
100 years old.
Kyrie and AD. Like there's not a lot of duos that are taking over Dame and Giannis as far as we're talking about trust.
100%.
Steve and Bill both said really good things. Steve said scoring is up from the old school NBA. Can't give up extra possession to skilled players.
Yeah.
That's valid. That's why we are okay with the Bucks potentially moving Bobby Portis. You have to be able to defend and get stops. Bobby Portis is a good rebounder, but you have to be able to get the defensive stops before you get those rebounds. And then Bill brought up a really great point. Some people are always going to call Dame washed when he has a bad game because it's an easy excuse to point fingers at him. That's 1,000% true, Bill. He said, I'll take Dame all day, every day, and twice on Sundays over pretty much anyone else. People forget that he was a damn near perennial MVP candidate when the Bucks were looking to acquire him. Big Al said out of all the Wisconsin sports teams, which is going to win championships for me is going to be maybe the Wisconsin basketball team. I mean, they're going to have the first crack at it out of any of the teams.
The Bucks could still win the title this year. Don't get it twisted.
And
are they as close as we would want? Probably not. But the team that you're looking for, the answer is the Packers. The Packers really aren't that far away.
Yeah. And the lovely thing about being a Wisconsin sports fan is even though we only have one championship in the last 5 years and 2 championships in the last 15 years, all of our teams have been competitive.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I understand that championships are what you want, but you can't ask for more than being competitive. Expecting more than being competitive is just unrealistic. Expecting your team to win championships all the time is unrealistic. But expecting your teams to be competitive is fair, and I think all of our teams have had that outside of maybe Badger football the last couple of years, but they're doing a complete program overhaul, so I'll let that slide.
Yep, I agree.
Steve said he saw that Dame and Giannis were rated the number 4 duo behind Tatum and Brown It's kind of hard to argue with that, strictly because they just won a championship. But other than that, like, annoyingly, I'm willing to bet you that Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns were above them.
God.
I don't trust them in the playoffs yet.
That's tough.
Big Al said Wisconsin sports is better than Illinois sports. I'm going to trigger a lot of people with that take. It's absolutely factual.
Big Al, you're in the right place because we like to poke fun at it.
Taylor said, what seed were we won the chip?
3rd seed.
Number 3. They were
don't remember our record.
50. They had 51 wins that year. Oh no, that year was shortened because of COVID. They only played 72 games that year.
What was? Go ahead, keep going.
And then the other thing that Brad said, Bobby doesn't like making the extra pass. Oh man, we've talked about this a lot. Bobby is made of energy, and the basketball finds energy. We've talked about Bobby just having to let the game come to him. We've talked a lot about that Bobby's got to trust that the ball is going to come back to him without forcing shots. So I understand where you're coming from on that one.
They were 46-26. You were right. They only played 72 games.
Okay. So I was a little high. But as we go into this Thunder game, I was excited about how A.J. Johnson was playing. Unfortunately, he was included in the trade today, so I'm not going to go on a big thing with A.J. Johnson. Yeah. Now, the Bucks were resting the big 4. Livingston started at the 5, which made for very weird matchups. This game was also without Bobby Portis in addition to the big 4. And as Wisco fanatics, we understand that this game then becomes less about the final score, less about the win-loss, and more about playing the game the right way, building good habits. We've heard Giannis say that a million times. Early in the first quarter, I saw several lazy passes, unfortunately, by Ajax and by Ryan Rollins. OKC is not going to be like, hey, you guys are missing some starters. We're going to take it easy on you. They're not. You still have to make good, crisp passes. I saw a couple times where the Bucks just lost where SGA was. Can't do that. He's an MVP frontrunner this season for a reason. Can't lose track of SGA. And I saw a couple times where guys would drive and they were just trying to do the poke away thing. Yeah, that's lazy. That's not good habits. Not using the backboard when you're taking shots in the paint, especially from the side of the rim. Not getting back on defense. Like, those are the habits you got to build when you're playing games without your starters. Those are the things that if you're playing hard in a game like this that are could potentially earn you playing time in the future. The 2 biggest examples are AJ Green and Andre Jackson Jr.
And Ryan Rollins.
And Ryan Rollins. That's fair. Yeah. He passed along right as the backup point guard.
He did.
So, we're back to, nobody's complaining about not playing the young guys anymore. Doc Rivers has been playing the young guys a shit ton this year.
Yeah, he is.
So I do really, really like Chris Livingston's potential for the future. Should he be in the Bucks rotation right now? No. Those things can be true at the same time. Play him extremely heavy G League minutes this year and see if he can crack the rotation next year.
Yep. I think next year is the time.
Very interested in him. Number 1 was LeBron and Luka. Number 2 was Jokic and Murray. LeBron and Luka, number 1 is weird. Offensively and playmaking, sure. But if we're going overall.
Bro, they're both bad on defense. And you know me, I'm a LeBron fan. Bro, they're both bad on defense.
Yeah.
They both
Jokic and Murray, they have a championship too. So I can understand that one.
LeBron and Luka might lead the league in most times talking to the ref. That's going to be funny because it's true.
I understand where you're coming from. The last thing I'll say on this game, I loved seeing Pat Connaughton out there with A.J. Johnson and Tyler Smith. You could see him pointing to them, telling them where to go, what to be doing, how to understand that stuff. Pat Connaughton making plays, directing traffic. Brad said LeBron and Luka both need the ball. That's accurate as well. But seeing Pat Connaughton out there with the young guys, I did appreciate that. He's obviously been here for 5 years now, so he knows the system and everything that they're doing and the guys on the team. So seeing Pat out there directing the traffic with the young guys, I did appreciate that from him. We've said it plenty of times. His role got reduced and he's been nothing but professional about it.
Yep.
So if the trade deadline comes and passes tomorrow and Pat Connaughton's still a Buck, I'm going to be okay with that.
Yep.
All right. What did you take away from the Thunder game?
Yeah, so I'm going to echo something you said. I wrote down I respect Pat. Pat was out there being a leader, and I loved every second of it. And I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to tell people this. I was seeing a lot of complaining online. Shocker, I know. And people were like, "Oh my God, what is this? The Bucks need to do some. We're losing by 50." Do you see who we are playing? We are throwing our summer league roster out there against a number 1 seeded Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be down by 50. Duh.
Yeah. Watch the game, not the score.
I enjoyed watching this game because I didn't have any expectations of like, ooh, this can be a good game. The Bucks could go in. Maybe we get a Giannis, legacy game, and they come out and they win this game. No, it was going to be the young guys. One thing I wrote down about Khris Livingston is I wrote down that he has an NBA body. He 100% has an NBA body.
1,000%. Yep.
Once he starts understanding angles and he gets his handles up a little bit and he can get to the rim and drive to the rim bully ball style a little bit, he could become a player.
Yeah. He's super long too. Like he's 6'7", and I think his wingspan is 6'11".
Yeah, he's got potential.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid to let it fly. So I love that about him too. He already has that mentality. So he just needs a little bit more, sawing off of the rough edges is how I'm going to phrase it.
And let's talk about Tyler Smith here for a second too. He shot 3 for 10 from the 3-point line. Yep. If he makes one more, I'm very happy for him to be at 40%. I'm really good with that.
Yep.
I just want to talk about a couple Tyler Smith possessions here. So this first one is him defensively. He switches, stays close enough to get a contest without getting under the feet. That's a good defensive possession. Next, this is an offensive possession. So you saw him do this. This is really smart offensive IQ for Tyler Smith to be setting this screen for A.J. Johnson.
Yep.
This can give him a lane to the rim. It's a potential cut for him. He could have taken this shot also.
Yeah.
He passes it up and sets – dude, this is – for him to be understanding this is a big deal. He's 20 years old, and he's understanding that by sealing A.J. Johnson's guy when he tried to go under the screen, if he does this with Dame on the floor, that's a 3 every single time. Guaranteed.
Yeah. And good for him to understand that he like you said, he sealed him off, so he went into like a box out, so he's able to move a little bit, so it makes it harder for the defender to come around. That is absolutely a 3-point shot with Dame.
That is Tyler Smith preparing to play with Damian Lillard.
Good for him because we're going to need him in the next couple of years.
Yeah. And then drops a dime on the same possession. So 2 smart screens and a dime on the same possession. Love that from Tyler Smith. Yeah. And then again, he's defending right here up by the P for the Paycom Center. Gets a switch. Another screen, switches again, and plays good defense on a smaller defender or a smaller offensive player.
Yeah. So
multiple switches, good defense, intelligent offense. I'm really excited for Tyler Smith in the future.
Yeah. I think Giannis hit the nail on the head when he gave him kind of a Chris Bosh kind of.
I like that.
I was like, I could see it.
When we did our draft prep last summer, Tyler Smith was the top of my list guy for replacing Bobby Portis.
Yeah, he was, and you called it.
And I did. Thank you.
I only have one more thing I wanted to say. If Andre Jackson Jr. does one thing this summer, please create a go-to move on offense.
And shoot 2,000 3-pointers every day.
He needs the catch and shoot game if you're going to survive with the Bucks with Giannis how it is right now. But he also needs a move that he can go to when things break down. If it's a little post midi, okay. If it's him doing a little crossover, getting to the rim, okay. He's got that athleticism to get to the rim whenever he wants.
He's got a sneaky little bit of floater game, I think, too.
Yeah,
so
develop that more.
Three and make floaters, we're in business.
Yeah, you get a little pump fake. If you're able to step to the side and shoot the three, fine. If they run you off the three and you can hit the floater, perfectly fine. That's how this works.
That's all he needs. That's it.
Yep.
Bill said he was happy to see the youngsters get on the floor. Now the coaches and veterans both know what they need to work on them with. The people that are whining about the score aren't watching the game from a coaching perspective. That's absolutely valid. A development perspective, I'll say. So I'm glad that people that watch our show have that perspective, or people that are listening to us now are at least, getting that perspective from it.
Yeah.
Big ass, what is your biggest Bucks what if for maybe Jabari Parker? Maybe he might have been a Buck now. Maybe still would have been a Buck now, but it would have been interesting to see how they could have competed in the years where like Giannis was winning like most improved and stuff.
That would have been some. Jabari Parker getting hurt early in his career is one of the biggest FU slaps in Bucks history.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
The alternative was Joel Embiid. I'm still glad they didn't draft Dante Exum that year.
Yeah, I can't stand Embiid.
Yeah. He probably has the same number of games played as Jabari Parker in the last 5 years.
Yep.
Okay. Steve said it's a great point, not just on the player. It's also the staff and the players knowing how to put young guys in position to succeed. It absolutely is. And that goes to Bino Udrih in Oshkosh for the Herd.
Yeah.
Jake and I are going to try to get some media credentials, potentially go and watch some of those guys and maybe talk to some of those guys. But that's in the works. So no definitive stuff on that yet. But other than that, the Bucks play tonight. So I don't expect Kyle Kuzma to be playing tonight. But maybe this weekend. So other than that, we're going to bring Mike in and we're going to start talking about the Badgers basketball team. So we're going to bring Mike in. Mike, welcome.
How we doing, fellas? Pretty busy day in the sports world.
The flip count was cold-blooded, my boy.
And we still have tomorrow to go yet. So we might be going live tomorrow again to see what else is going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So going to the Badgers, we are traditionally Joel Embiid Rookie of the Year. They should retroactively take his MVP away too, because all he did was cry and he got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one else had to do.
Yeah. So traditionally, we are normally bad news first kind of guys. So we get to do that with the Badgers this week. We get the bad game out of the way, and then we get 2 W's. So, Mike, I'll start with you on Maryland. What did you take away from the guards last Wednesday night?
Going into this game, I knew we were going to it was kind of an uphill battle going into it. I believe the Badgers were 5.5-point dogs in this game, which was pretty crazy seeing as, what kind of a streak we were on going into it. Maryland's a great team. They're 13
winning streak going into this too.
So before this game, Maryland had road wins against Illinois and Indiana right before this.
Yeah.
They're also 13-1 at home this year going into the game with their only loss to Marquette. Going into this, it's definitely an uphill battle, but exactly. So going into that, we got to talk about Max Klesman a little bit. Unfortunately, this game, I was definitely a little disappointed in some of the areas, but he did find other ways to, contribute. Let's not be mistaken about that. He did get 31 minutes. He had 5 points, was 1 of 8 from the field. He did get 7 rebounds, 1 assist, and 3 steals too, which is good to look at. But some of the things that what we consistently are seeing from him lately, he's got to take better shots in my view. Some of them are a little bit out of control ish. I know in this game specifically, and I thought in this game he did get mixed up in a handful of rotations defensively, which did lead to some threes by Maryland, who ended up shooting 12 of 24 in this game, 50% from 3. It's hard. It's pretty hard to beat teams when you're giving up 50% from 3. So, but again, I go back to, in this game, if there's any positive outlook with him, he's finding ways to still, contribute to the team. 7 rebounds, that's definitely no joke, especially as a guard. So he's definitely finding ways, to contribute at the end of the day. Kamari McGee, pretty low key for the most part. I get maybe not low key, but I mean, he did get 20 plus minutes, and that's something that I've been harping you guys for a while. Although I think part of that did have to do with the foul trouble with John Tonje and John Blackwell in this game, is what it is. But he did get 9 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist. Perfect from the free throw line, 4 of 4. He did hit another 3-pointer as well. Did have a couple missed layups. Not the greatest game for Cam all around, but still, the guy still deserves 20-plus minutes a game in my view. So not too bad overall. What was that?
Something I noticed in the Maryland game, and then I really started watching it in the Northwestern game, is he needs to get better at boxing out his guy. Because there's been multiple times over the last week where his guy, and I understand you're the smallest guy on the floor, but when I see you going down by the rim and you're ball watching, that's a problem for me. That's the only gripe I have on him, is he doesn't box his guy out enough, and it kind of costs us in this game.
Yeah, last night he did that too. Now you say that, I'm like, he did. A couple second chance points, but I mean, and then definitely as a game as a whole, my main takeaways. I kind of mentioned it before. This isn't a bad loss by any means.
No.
Again, Maryland 13-1 at home, only lost to Marquette. Marquette, we know how good they are this year. And all of our losses this year, I'm going back to it again. We were back in the double-digit turnover category. That's been a common theme in these losses, and bad starts to the games too. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I mean, it was pretty not an ideal start for us. With Maryland shooting 50% from 3 in this game, 12 of 24, they get about on 8 on average per game. Specifically shooting 7 of 11 in the second half. So they just decided to go unconscious in that second half.
Their season average is 36.5%. They shot 50%. You tip your cap and say good job and move on.
Yeah, and the last takeaway, which this is a good one, I thought. The Bigs did a really good job, I think, defensively on this game on Derek Queen and Julian Reese. Derek Queen, who I think very well could be a lottery pick in this upcoming draft. I said it last week, even before the game. This was something I was going to watch personally. He gave up only 20 points in the paint, only 2 layups. But that kind of sacrificed it a little bit for Maryland shooting 50% from 3. But as Tyler said, they shoot 36% on the year. So that's kind of, like you said, tip your cap,
strategy
move
they were
on.
playing to. That's why I say you tip your cap. They played the way that the Badgers wanted them to. They just made an above-average number of their threes.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I'm good with that, though. Go right ahead.
So, in my mind, looking at the first half, you mentioned the slow start. Maryland, to their credit, was pretty tough defensively. The Badgers missed too many free throws and too many threes. The first half, they were 5 for 9 from the free throw line. And I'm going to take John Tonje out of the bus before I throw everybody else under it. Everybody but John Tonje in the first half was 3 for 11 for 3. So going into John Tonje, he made 5 of the Badgers' first 12 points. Was hitting his threes. He was 3 for 5 from the 3-point line. Was definitely the brightest spot of the game in my mind, with his 23 points and 6 rebounds on 8 of 16 from the field, 50%, 5 for 8 from the 3-point line. That's brilliant, and 2 for 2 at the free throw line. John Blackwell got into first half foul trouble. He scored on the first possession of the second half, getting to the rim. The Badgers opened the second half on a 9-0 run after Maryland ended the first half on a 7-2 run. So the Badgers were able to jump up to a 6-point lead to start the second half. Also got a dunk off a loose ball, made his first 3, finished with just 10 points, was 3 for 6 from the field and 1 for 2 from the 3-point line. That's efficient enough. Just can't sit out half of the first half with foul trouble.
Yeah.
We've had this conversation, Jake and I, about Andre Jackson Jr. with the Bucks. When he got thrown out of a game, you're too important to be missing.
Yep.
That's how I feel about John Blackwell. Maryland made 3 straight threes in the second half to go from down 5 to up 4, and the 3-point shooting, like we've already discussed heavily, was just the story of the game. Non-John Tonje 3-point shooters for the Badgers were 4 of 21. That's 19%.
Yeah.
So Tonje by himself was about 62.5%. The rest of the team was 19%. So it's just a tough day, 3-point shooting, and that, in my mind, was the deciding factor. So, Jake, how did you feel about the bigs?
Yeah, just going to tell you guys first thing I wrote down here before I get into the bigs. I said, need someone other than John Tonje to score, please. That would be nice. I'm going to say this. I think that the Badgers play with good physicality. I don't think they lost this game by any means. I do think that Maryland won this game. I think if this game was in Madison, I think the Badgers would have came out on top. That's how evenly I thought this game was played. But their shots fell and ours didn't. That's really what it came down to. Nolan Winter, 9 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists. Yeah, 1 of 3 from 3. So the thing I'm going to say about that, he's shooting it with confidence. That's all I care about at the end of the day. He's pulling that thing with confidence. His shot is one of those shots to me that always looks like it's going in. He gets such good arc on it that every time he shoots, I'm ready. I already have the hand like pre-up, like he's got a nice looking jumper, man.
Yeah,
it just looks like it always is going in. I'm like, oh,
it's smooth.
But I thought he was okay. If you take a step back and you're not upset about the loss, it's a good thing for young guys to be in this situation. Now, he's had big-time games, he's played the NCAA tournament, he's been around all that stuff. But to be getting real minutes as a starter in a hostile environment on the road, a conference road game against a team that's really good at home, that's a good experience for him. Good experience for guys like Xavier Amos, who's probably never been in that situation either. Now, he only got 9 minutes, didn't score in this one. But I do have something to say when we get to last night's game about Xavier Amos that I'm so proud of him. So look forward to that. Gilmore, he only took 2 shots, was really kind of a non-factor in this one. The best big man from this day was Steven Crowell, 10 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists. And honestly, Steven Crowell has probably hit his ceiling, and he just wasn't helping with scoring. We needed him to be a little bit more aggressive, a guy who was a fifth-year senior. Tonje kind of doing it by himself. I in my opinion, would have expected more out of Steven Crowell, lean on him a little bit more to get us some big-time buckets. They had who was their big man that was in foul trouble?
Julian Reese? Or what are you talking?
Maryland had a big man that got in foul trouble right away in the first half. I don't remember his name, but
was it Derek Queen or Julian Reese?
Queen. Yep, Queen.
Yeah, Queen.
Once that happened, if I'm Steven Crowell, lights on. It's go time. That's what I would have expected from him, a guy who was a fifth-year senior. But not gonna kill him too much. It's one loss, and it is what it is.
Did you feel the same way on Saturday against Northwestern?
I did until the second half.
Very, very tale of two halves of the game.
I did. The first half was rough from my section of the notes. You want me just to keep going real quick?
Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. Nolan Winter is doing a fantastic job progressing this season, adding stuff to the bag, adding chinks to the armor, whatever you want to like. Chink, chink, chink. I could do this, right? And he is already a good player, and the potential on this kid is unbelievable.
Dog, imagine he adds like 10, 12 pounds of muscle.
Dude, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but imagine he starts shooting
that dirt fade. He put on, 15 from last year to this year?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
He looks like a completely different human being right now. Steven Crowell. Oh, God, guys. I'm not going to sit on here and cuss you out because it doesn't matter. But, we talked about this when guard had to call you out. Now you're kind of going back to where you were before you got called out. So do we have to keep calling you out or what's going on here? The light should already be on for you. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now, we're going to talk about the man of the hour. We're going to talk about Carter Gilmore. This honestly could not happen to a more deserving person. Absolutely. He's just a good guy. Seems like a goofball. Seems like a guy that just likes to be around the team. He's going to be the guy at a freaking bonfire in like 10 years. Like, oh, yeah, remember this game back in 2024? Like, dude, he's going to be that. You can already tell. But for him to have 15, he had 15 of the 19 points at the bench score, by the way. 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 5 of 7 from the field, 3 of 5 behind the arc. Oh, my goodness. He was going crazy. He had back-to-back threes in the second half. When the Badgers' offense was on life support, it was basically John Tonje. John Tonje was the offense in the first half.
Yep.
And for a lot of the second half, too. Other people stepped up, but I'm not trying to step on toes here. And then he also had a putback that gave the Badgers the lead in this one in the second half. So he was doing it from all areas, from outside the arc, which is a new thing for everybody in Badgers Nation this year, including himself. And then doing it the old-fashioned way, getting some layups. Man, I was so happy watching this. I was like, oh, my God, dude, this is like my dream come true right now. We're beating a Chicago team for one. So, Big Al, I told you, we give a lot of shit to Chicago teams. We were beating up on a Chicago team, and it was like my favorite player on the Badgers this year, dude. Like, it's so exciting for me. Got a couple stats for you guys, though. So, 9-point deficit in this one was the largest that they had to come back from this year and got a win. So, good for them. This was the 12th game for the Badgers to hit double-digit threes. That is the highest in school's history, by the way.
Yeah.
12 games.
Tied it.
No, it's
Tied it.
on the Badgers website.
This game they tied it.
Oh, okay. Maybe they tied it.
I think
Okay.
13 is the highest.
I think Tyler's right. Yeah, they tied
Okay.
it.
Well,
Yeah,
then the Badgers
assume that.
website is a bunch of liars. But this one I think is true as well. Over the last 30 games, the Badgers are 29-1 when holding their opponents to under 70 points. They only allowed 69. Nice. They're 12-1 this season. So 29-1 when they hold their opponents under 70 points. So that might be the magic number.
That might be the magic number. Steve said, Nolan, welcome to Culver's, a Wisconsin favorite. Brad said the best part about Gilmore is his teammates are just so giddy for him. I mean, we've been fans of Gilmore for multiple years now just because he's a dirty work guy.
Yeah.
That's what we appreciate about Carter Gilmore. So, like, when Jake says that there's nobody more deserving to have a game like this than Carter Gilmore, I agree. He's been the dirty work guy.
Who is a walk-on this year, by the way. He's not on scholarship.
Not on a scholarship. That's valid.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to say about the Northwestern game, Jake?
No, I think I got all my thoughts out. I might be missing some. No, go ahead.
All right. I'm going to talk just about Blackwell and Tonje, and then I'm going to come back to a couple more broad things after Mike talks about the guards. But looking at John Blackwell, he was the one to be able to get the lid off the basket when Northwestern was off to an 8-0 start. He scored the Badgers' first 5 points. Now, unfortunately, those are the only 5 points that he scored. But this was the second straight game that he was dealing with foul trouble. Now, what I'm going to say for both of these next 2 games is John Tonje has shown don't sleep on the guys that we know that can ball.
Yeah.
Blackwell was carrying the load while Tonje was kind of going through a weird slump. And now the opposite is happening because John Tonje, goddamn, hit a 3, made 2 technical free throws, hit another 3 to tie the game at 15, hit another 3 for the lead. At one point, he scored 16 straight points.
Yeah, he was on one.
Yeah,
That is wild. 16 straight points is insane. Second half, hits a tough fadeaway against Northwestern after an and one that Northwestern just had on the other end. No momentum. And then gets another tough bucket after Northwestern just had back-to-back scores to get the lead down to 7 points. Also hit 2 clutch free throws. Every time Northwestern did something that made it seem like they were going to be able to grab some momentum, John Tonje is just like, nope, slams the door back shut. He made the tough baskets. He made the clutch baskets. He made the to carry the team in the first half baskets. John Tonje did everything offensively for the Badgers this game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he finished with 27 points, made 5 threes for the second time in as many games, and had 2 rebounds and 3 assists. Tonje is balling.
Yeah,
So
he was hooping, bro.
Mike, talk about the guards, and then I'll give some more broad game type stuff after that.
Okay, yeah, run through this real quick. So I'm going to start with Cam and then go into Klez because I got to give him some flowers. But no, Cam was pretty quiet for the most part. Again, got 20-plus minutes, which is what I'm all for, as you guys know. But 4 points, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, still padding the stat sheet at the end of the day. But I am going to stress the importance of Klezman in this game. First half, as you guys already pointed out, basically the whole team in general, with the exception of John Tonje, as we all know it, the game was ugly as shit. If Tonje doesn't do what he does in the first half, we're staring being down double digits in this game, and we're basically on the verge of getting blown out at Northwestern without their best player. We were favored 4.5 going into this game, even without Barnheiser. I thought we were gonna cover this with easily. But I should know better at Northwestern. It's a house of horrors, whether it's basketball or football, as we know. But no, I'm going to give Max Klezman actually some props because in the first half, he was looking like kind of trending towards the last couple of games prior whether it was making mistakes or just taking ugly shots. He stepped up primarily in the second half. He played 27 minutes. He ended up with 11 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists, all the 11 points were in the second half. So, everyone started clicking, it seemed like, in the second half. Obviously, you got Gilly James, who is probably MVP of this game, Tonje doing his thing. But I think Max Klezman definitely deserves a little bit of props, especially in the second half, because I think it was right when the second half started, basically, is when he got going right away. No, I just wanted to throw that out there because I think Klez starting to play better. As I'm going to talk in the next game as well. I think he's got a little something going right now. So, but no, my notes. Thank God for Tonje. As Tyler said, scored 16 consecutive points in the first half. I do think we got to get away from these slow starts on the road. That's second game in a row on the road. Whether with 6 turnovers, I think we started 2 of 16 shooting with 6 turnovers, right? So that's something that we got to cut out primarily on the road. We're staring going on the road right now at Purdue, at Iowa specifically on Saturday, and then we're at Michigan State for sure yet. So that's something that we definitely got to clean up. And then, Gilly saved us from not only losing 2, but maybe even losing by double digits. Props to him. As you guys said, I don't think there's anyone that's more deserving. We need to find more players like him. Although it's going to be pretty hard to come by now with the portal and whatnot too. So I'm hoping, going forward, we can find those in-state kids, whether you were a walk-on transferring over or, just finding them in-state and going on scholarship, just finding kids that represent the W at the end of the day. And
or grabbing some underappreciated guys from other programs.
Yeah. And finding those guys like a Carter Gilmore, Kamari McGee that have put their time and effort into the program. Yeah. I guess you could say Klezman too. It's his 3rd year with the program. Sure. But just representing the W at the end of the day and just realizing how much it matters to them.
Yeah. Steve said, see that Tonje is a nominee for the Big O Award. He is. He is named on the Oscar Robertson Award watch list. So that is awesome. Justin said, evening, guys. Hope everyone's doing well. We're doing decent. And then Big Al said, Kamari McGee, the former Green Bay Phoenix. He's a Badger and Green Bay College basketball team fan. So, yes, Kamari McGee, and Mike's talked about it at length this season, the improvements that he's made, especially from the three-point line. Now, the big things as far as the team is concerned, Mike mentioned the slow start numbers, but looking at the first half specifically, 9 first-half turnovers. That's like a game total number that we'd like to see for the Badgers. And they were 8 of 28 from the field. That's 28.6%. I literally wrote in my notes, don't expect it to continue. The Badgers scored 25 points in the first half, and the interior defense was really good, similar to the Maryland game. But the perimeter defense, and I said this to you guys, they had to do a better job of getting through screens.
Yeah.
And the second half, that stuff kind of continued until Carter Gilmore hit those back-to-back threes. Northwestern was up 42-35 until the Badgers went on a 22-10 run. My biggest thing, and this goes credit 100% to Greg Gard, the Badgers defensively started switching screens. That took Northwestern out of their offense, and the Badgers started getting stops when they did that.
Yeah.
It's something that people aren't complaining about as much anymore. but we need to go from not complaining to giving credit to what Greg Gard is doing. This is a much, much, much better basketball team than we've seen in the last couple of years, which is really saying something because we've had some pretty decent teams.
Yep.
But this year's team right now looks like a 4 or 5 seed in the tournament, which they've been. But this team has the upside to do anything when they're playing at their best. And Greg Gard is making in-game adjustments that are affecting the final score.
They get a couple road wins. They can mess around and be a 3 seed, bro.
They could. They really could.
Easily.
Purdue,
Especially
Michigan
if they beat
State.
Michigan State down the road. Yeah.
You got Oregon coming in. You get
Purdue's number 7 right now. They go to Purdue and beat Purdue at number 7. They're moving into the 3 line, dude.
That's massive. No, there's plenty of opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Plenty.
Second half, they shot 14 to 25 from the field. That's 56%. They essentially doubled their efficiency, and they doubled the number of points that they scored. 25 points in the first half, 50 in the second half. So, again, 1 half does not define you. Like we said, tale of 2 halves with this game. Absolutely what it was. Doubled their point total from the first half in the second half.
And they only turned the ball over 1 time in the second half.
That's a really good point, too.
Good call.
1 turnover.
Okay. So let's go to Indiana, and let's talk about that game. Michael, let you start with the guards.
Can I throw out some stats that absolutely trash Indiana real quick? Is that okay?
Every time.
Kai Cook? Okay. I've probably harped on you guys so many times since I've done this podcast. Indiana should no longer be a blue blood in college basketball.
Yeah.
I've worked on this. I put Indiana basketball and Nebraska football in the same conversation. They are utterly useless in today's era of this sport with football and basketball. The Badgers have now won 21 straight games at home at the Kohl Center. Do you think a blue blood school should be doing that? I think not. The last time Indiana won at Wisconsin, the year was 1998. Who was the coach for Indiana at the time? I'll give you a guess. 1998.
Bob Knight?
You are correct, sir. Bobby Knight. That was his last Big Ten game he ever coached when Wisconsin beat him. The number 1 movie in the box office in 1998 was The Titanic.
You're not doing this right now.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just cannot stand Indiana fans one bit that think that they are a blue blood school.
My dad gets
this is per an Evan Flood report. This roster, so to speak, costed Indiana $5 million.
Whoa.
$5 million.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what the Badgers is?
No.
Under
probably not. Yeah. It's stupid. Yeah. Yeah. It's
holy shit.
All hail John Tonje.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's been 84 years.
I will get into the actual game now. I could still go on, but we absolutely punched these dudes in the mouth. I could not have been more happy. I just like it. I'm going to fast forward really quick in the press conference after the game. Nolan Winder was interviewed just in general about the team and the conference, how you guys are picked to finish 12th. He said the team saying was chatter don't matter. So hey. I love that comment. I wrote that down. I made sure I wrote that down because I might have to use that for myself sometimes just in life in general. But I'm going to give my first props in this game to Max Klesmit. I think you could argue that he was the player of this game, honestly. Very effective on both sides of the ball, in my view. Came out, hit 2 threes right away. Although everybody hit a 3, you get a 3, you get a 3, you get a 3. But no, it was awesome to see from Klesmit specifically because we've talked about it. His shooting percentages haven't been the greatest this year. We need him to get that going. But he ended up with 13 points, 6 assists, 3 steals, 1 rebound in 25 minutes of play. You couldn't really ask too much. He did take a couple questionable shots, but then again, watching the tape, it was kind of winding down the shot clock, some of those shots, so he had to kind of force it up.
Yep.
But I wanted to give props to Klez. I think he's got something going here in the last game and a half. So I'm looking forward to even going to Iowa this Saturday. Hopefully he can keep his shot going there. Kamari McGee doing what he does best, stat stuffer. He did get 19 minutes this game, 9 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. Just extremely consistent. I'm going to throw a random stat here too real quick. This is a Kamari McGee and Carter Gilmore stat. So Kamari McGee and Carter Gilmore are now a combined 32 of 56 from 3. 50 in the Big Ten specifically, 57.1% in the Big Ten between the two, shooting the 3-ball. McGee this year is 19 of 33. Gilly is 13 of 23, which is just absolutely insane. But I had to throw that out there for the local guys. It was a great start. It was a great start to both halves in this game. The Badgers scored on 50% of their possessions, which is absolutely wild. I thought one of the biggest callouts, even defensively, 64 points was the third lowest Indiana has had this season. So I thought that was very impressive. I know Jake's going to talk about it, but going into this game, me personally, I was a little worried about what Oumar Ballo would do against us potentially because he absolutely destroyed us last year at Arizona.
Yep.
I'm going to give the Bigs their props in this game. When you're holding a guy to 4 points, 6 rebounds, and he's supposed to be your stud, your bell cow, so to speak, you're doing your fucking job. So, And I wanted to I'm going to give one more call out. I'm just going to call out Amos, actually. Amos had 2 very clutch buckets in this game when we were going in a cup. We did go in a couple droughts. I'll be the first one to call that out. I'm going to call out Amos's specific bucket he got over Ballo. I think it was trending towards the end of the first half. Indiana cut the lead to about, I want to say it was like 10, 12 maybe, but Adrian Amos, he was driving to the basket, stopped, pivoted, had a shot right over Oumar Ballo that went in, and that kind of ended the drought for us. So I just wanted to give a prop to Amos on that one, but he was very clutch in key situations. So I'm good with that. I'll trash Indiana some more if you guys want me to at the end of this.
I'm looking up Gilmore's threes compared to AJ Storr because Gilmore's made 12 so far this year.
I believe he's passed him, AJ Storr.
I believe he is as well.
I have Gilmore's January and February numbers.
Not anymore. Storr is up to 14. But AJ Storr has shot 51 threes compared to Carter Gilmore being 12. Oh, no, he is ahead of it. Sorry, I read the wrong number. Yeah, Carter Gilmore has 15 made threes this year. AJ Storr has 14.
I got to update my – I was doing Big Ten. Never mind. Okay, yeah,
and
go ahead.
Carter Gilmore has taken 18 fewer threes.
Damn.
Efficiency.
Yeah, love that.
He also plays a lot more minutes to put on top of that, by the way.
Yeah.
That people aren't going to take into effect. They're going to look at the hardcore numbers. Gilmore plays a lot more minutes than AJ Storr.
Yep.
For a lot less money, literally not even a scholarship.
Yep.
There you go.
So looking at the wings, John Blackwell, second half, actually I'm going to say this, just the Badgers got off to a really hot start, and neither Blackwell nor Tanjay played a huge part in it. But looking at the second half, both of them very aggressive driving to the basket.
Mm-hmm.
Blackwell started getting downhill in the second half. Tanjay, very good. What's up, AJ? Very good body control to get a bump and a dunk. Got another big drive and dunk that put the Badgers up 18 points with 1:17 to go. Blackwell finished with 8 points, was 3 for 12 from the floor, which is obviously not good. That's 25%. That's obviously not good. Brad Storr's minutes have been very inconsistent.
Yeah, he's getting like 6 minutes a game right now.
But on a bad shooting night, it's good to see John Blackwell still locked into the getting 8 rebounds. That's 1 off of his season high. So it's good to see him still applying himself to the game when he's not shooting well. Had an assist, did have 3 turnovers, also had 2 steals. Like I said after Northwestern, don't sleep on him. He's capable of scoring 30. He's literally done it this season. John Tanjay finished with 15 points, 5 rebounds, an assist, a turnover, and a steal. But the the big thing for me, so the Badgers go on an 11-4 run out of halftime.
Mm-hmm.
and obviously the Badgers led the entire game. The Badgers led by double digits for 36 minutes and 37 seconds.
Golly.
Talking about a 40-minute basketball game, and the Badgers led by double digits for almost 37 minutes. That is demoralizing as hell. Almost 37 minutes out of a 40-minute basketball game, you're down by double digits.
Yep.
That's
Vegas was right. We were 9.5-point favorites going into this. Even I thought that was a lot. Turns out they were right. I don't know how, but they were right.
It's because it's all rigged, Mike. That's why.
Vegas always knows, Mike. Vegas always knows.
I know, dude. I've been on the negative end many times with that.
All right, Jake, how did the Bigs do against Indiana?
All right. So, first of all, thank you, Mike, for calling that out, because the first thing I wrote down was the post defense was fucking elite. And I wrote down the word fucking elite on my paper, by the way, because it was good. It was very good, in my opinion. Now, next thing I want to talk about is Dirk Nolan Winter. That was disgusting.
Yeah,
I laughed like a small female child when that happened. I said, holy shit, he just did what? Oh, my God. That was disgusting. 5 of 7, 2 of 3 from 3. Again, shooting the three-pointers with confidence. I love it. I love it so much. This is the next step into his game. He is going to be a filthy, disgusting monster next year. I'm just going to call it right now. If he takes another step, like between freshman year to sophomore year, from sophomore year to junior year, he could be an 18-point per game scorer.
He could be like an 18 and 10.
I was going to say 18 and 8, 18 and 9. I could definitely see that.
With a block and a half.
Yeah. Now, talking about Steven Crowell, he didn't score much. He did play good defense. On top of playing just good, regular, old-fashioned good defense. He also had 2 steals and a block, so good for him. 3 points, 3 rebounds, an assist, 2 steals, 1 block. He only took 3 shots. So you're not going to score a ton taking 3 shots. Just going to put that out there for people who are complaining about him scoring. He took literally 3 shots.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about Gilmore, then I'm going to talk about Amos because I want to give him some credit. Yeah, I agree, Brad. No way Woodson could survive.
I was hoping this would be the game that got him fired.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I'm looking for seeing a tweet fairly soon with him.
Yeah.
If Indiana's as serious as they're saying they are, like he ain't going to be around long. I don't know. That's
losing at Wisconsin. Really isn't going to be like crap. You shouldn't have lost at Wisconsin. It's tough to win in Madison, but
21 in a row though.
That's tough. Obviously, he's not the only coach losing at Wisconsin. Just pointing that out there. Carter Gilmore. Back-to-back double-digit scoring games. Love that for him. Back-to-back games hitting 3 3-pointers. He was 3 for 3 of this game. He had 10 points, 3 rebounds, and assists, 3 of 4 from the field. All 3 of his shots he made were from the freaking three-point line. None of this makes sense. If you'd have told me this going into the season, I'd have been like, hell no, dude.
I would more sniper season loading.
I was like, what is going on? I wrote down his January and February numbers. This is Carter Gilmore. He has 51 points, 30 rebounds, 12 assists, and 4 blocks since the start of January. He has shot 18 of 32 on field goals. That is 56%. And he has shot 11 of 18 from 3. 11 of 18, bro. Is this Steph Curry? My goodness. That is filthy.
That's like 60%.
That's 61%.
Damn,
that is filthy. This is your probably your 7th man, I would say, because Kamar McGee's probably the 6th man, because playmakers and people who could ball handlers are going to be above post players usually. Now I got to talk about Amos. I want to talk about the growth of Amos. He had some nice post moves.
Yeah, he did.
And I was like, hell yeah, you're getting Wisconsin-fied, boy. You're coming in. We're teaching you how to play old school post. He came in as a guy who was kind of like a tweener, right? Was he on the wing? Yeah. Was he a big man? He's kind of got the body to play both. He was shooting some threes last year at Northern Illinois. So for him to learn post moves and show good strength and good footwork down low, I was like,
the footwork is the biggest thing in my mind.
I was like, oh yeah, this guy, this year is really for him to get acclimated with Madison, get him coached up, get him with the Wisconsin program. I think next year will really be a year where he's going to etch out, some real playing time. I think that he could – I'm not going to say he's going to be a starter, but he could be an important person off the bench next year.
I was just going to say he'll have a shot at being –
He'll have a shot.
It could
He'll
be
definitely have a
Amos
shot.
Winter down low.
Yeah.
I could see it.
But I could see them keeping him on the bench and being like the main big off the bench.
Yep, I could see that too.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so the Badgers only have one game between now and next Wednesday. They play Saturday at Iowa, so we will have one Badger game and 4 Bucks games next week. Jake and I may go live again tomorrow, depending on if the Bucks make more moves. Otherwise, we might still go live, talk about maybe some buyout candidates, because there is still likely to be other trades made in the NBA that involve some teams that are just going to trade for some guys with some salary, which is just another one of the benefits of the Bucks being under the second apron, is that they can sign players that go up to the mid-level exception, which is about $12 million. So the Bucks will be able to sign anybody that makes less than $12 million that gets bought out, versus only being able to sign guys from the veteran minimum. So just another benefit of the Middleton trade that we didn't actually talk about before. So maybe Jake and I will be back tomorrow. Other than that, we will see you guys again next week. Thank you, everybody, for commenting along. We appreciate it. We will see everybody next week, and go Bucks. They start in about 20 minutes. So definitely not expecting to see a Kyle Kuzma tonight, but maybe Friday. So we'll see maybe when Kuzma makes his debut. But other than that, don't expect the Bucks to be done, and hopefully the Badgers can get another win between now and next Wednesday.
Later, fellas.